Was planning on reading has checked in because the ceremony is about to begin. All right, I'm David Hazledine from the Fulton County Public Library here in Rochester. I'm the literacy director, and welcome to our open poetry reading, which I would also very much like to thank Digital Wolf and Jessica for really spearheading this and getting it going, and hopefully it's something we can do a little more often, here, there, everywhere. Since we are in a coffee shop, which seems to be the traditional locale for these sorts of events. I don't know how that happened exactly. It's a recent development, as usually alcohol was a little more closely associated with the poetry. Be it wine or mead, the slippery substance, like poetry, a slippery substance being made from honey. So I will read, once I catch my breath, a poem by Matthew Dickman, and some of you might have heard of him or seen him. He was actually an actor with his twin brother. They were in a movie, and suddenly I've forgotten the movie, but they are twins, and they're sitting in a pool, a milky pool, and they can read the minds of people all around the universe, all around the earth. And it just so happened they were children at the time, and they grew up into wonderful poets, and one of them, Matthew Dickman, wrote this. The only precious thing I own, this little espresso cup, and in it a dark roast all the way from Honduras, Guatemala, Ethiopia, where coffee was born in the 9th century, getting goat herders high, spinning like dervishes, the white blooms cresting out of the evergreen plant. Ethiopia, where I almost lived for a moment, but then the rebels surrounded the capital, so I stayed home. I stayed home and drank coffee and listened to the radio and heard how they were getting along. I would walk down Everett Street near the hospital where my older brother was bound to his white bed like a human mast, where he was getting his mind right and learning not to hurt himself. I would walk by and be afraid and smell the beans being roasted inside the garage of an old warehouse. It smelled like burnt toast. It was everywhere in the trees. I couldn't bear to see him. I sometimes never knew him. Sometimes he would call. He wanted us to sit across from each other, some coffee between us, sober. Coffee can taste like grapefruit or caramel, like tobacco, strawberries, cinnamon, the oils being pushed out of the ground and floating to the top of a French press, the expensive kind I get in the mail, the mailman with a pound of Sumatra under his arm, ringing my doorbell, waking me up from a night when all I had was tea, and watched a movie about the Queen of England when Spain was hot for all of her castles and all of her ships, carved out of fine Spanish trees, went up in flames, while back home Spaniards were growing potatoes and coffee was making its careful way along a giant whip from Africa to Europe, where cafes would become famous and people would eventually sit with their cappuccinos, the baristas talking about the new war, a cup of sugar on the table, a curled piece of lemon rind, a beret on someone's head, a scarf around their neck, a bomb in a suitcase left beneath a small table. Right now, I'm sitting near a hospital where psychotropics are being carried down the hall in a pink cup, where someone is lying there and he doesn't know who he is. I'm listening to the couple next to me talk about their cars. I have no idea how I got here. The world stops at the window while I take my little spoon and slowly swirl the cream around the lip of the cup. Once I had a brother who used to sit and drink his coffee black, smoke his cigarettes, and be quiet for a moment before his brain turned its armadas against him, wanting to burn down his cities and villages before grief became his capital with its one loyal flag and his face. Perhaps only his beautiful left eye shimmered on the surface of his Americano like a dark star. That was Matthew Dickman. I appreciate the applause. I was wondering about that. I believe it's been discussed before, especially in coffee shops, the clicking, the clapping. I guess the only thing that I would ask is maybe let's wait until the person is finished with all of their reading rather than clapping between every poem. I really hate making rules of any kind, but this is one that I feel like might be just a nice way of doing it. Don't ask me why. Let's continue, shall we? Our first reader will be my illustrious colleague, Erica Coffing, who I've roped into doing this, and I very much appreciate it. Here you are, Erica Coffing.
Hi, yeah, I didn't know I was going to read tonight, but that's fine. I can always jump in. I wrote a couple of poems for the poetry book from 2024, and I'm going to read two poems. And the first one I'm going to read is When I Come Across a Creek. And this kind of goes with a painting that I did as well, that Dan McCarthy and Susie Marvel now are the proud owners of, but it is a creek painting. The chest feels tender, heart aches with peace when I come across a creek. Clear to the bed, flashes of tiny colored pebbles. Dragonflies light upon my arms as I draw near to a creek. Dappled sunlight patches alternate against green and cerulean reflections as I gaze upon the creek. Rippling, breaking, fresh, cold, free, causing my breath to catch, it rushes away. My son said something this morning, so that's the end of the reading, but I want to add to it. My son said something this morning. I mentioned that there was this little creek near our pole barn. The water would kind of run off the roof of the pole barn, and when I was growing up, I would always go down there and I would just scoop water up into my mouth, and I didn't really think about what was on that roof. And he said, Mom, as long as there's running water in nature, you're going to stop and drink it. So that's true. So I encourage us all to do that, right? All right, the second poem I had is kind of a family joke. So it's called Birds. I never used to notice birds, except the dead ones my dad had shot. Their corpses littering the gravel driveway under the tree that overshadowed the house. Noisy, filthy, starlings, grackles. I never used to notice birds, the ones that trill, chirp, warble, and tweet. But I do now. I see them everywhere. Robins, hawks, cardinals, herons. I notice them constructing nests, plucking insects out of the grass, diving into water and catching fish, perched on fence rows, scouring fields for prey. Maybe it's that I'm older, and that's why I notice the birds. Has anyone ever noticed that they don't notice things until they age? And my dad did always sit outside and shoot with his shotgun at the starlings. My mom hated them. They made all this noise, and she would just run outside and bang on pots and pans trying to get them away. She said it kept the nice birds away. So she was a little bit racist against those types of birds. Well, anyway, that's all I have for you today, so I hope that brings a smile to your face. Thank you.
Yeah, the shooting the starlings thing is it's a controversial thing, you know. It depends on if you're, how nativist you are. And I apologize about this microphone, by the way, is can be a little tricky. It was a little bit stripped here, so I tried to set it at a height where everybody could read, so just bear with us. My mom just sent me a picture of a Carolina or a bluebird that are in her backyard. I said, "You're sure it's not an indigo bunting?"
Eastern bluebird?
It was an eastern bluebird. Sorry, not a Carolina. So our next reader, is gotten to know him a little bit recently. I guess I will let him introduce himself. He will be giving a reading. He has a new book, and he'll be giving a reading at the library here on April 25th. Yeah. That's from 12 to 2. Dylan Lloyd, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. This is very new for me. My day job is I put music in film and TV. I have songs of Love is Blind and Temptation Island and some shows on Netflix. But I'm originally from Chicago, and during COVID, I was, like everybody, well, at least in Chicago, wasn't doing much. And I would go from my apartment to the Starbucks down the street, and I would write these short poems. I would give myself that duration to write, and 5 years later I ended up publishing a book called Coffee Walk Poetry, and it went #1 on Amazon, and it went top 5 in American poetry, and that I didn't expect at all, so I'm doing a lot more of these book events. And I would like to read just a couple for you guys. They're real, like Emily Dickinson-sized short poems, if you guys are familiar with her. This poem is called Maze. It was just put in a literary journal in Canada called ! I feel stupid for using these colors on this canvas because my mind won't let me just paint the heart. Ventricles crisscross in a wasted maze of art. So I cover it in black to offset the scars. But who am I to deny sweet taste from a tongue deserving to navigate the walls of her embrace? So I'll just look to him to understand my fate. So when I wrote that, I was just thinking of my solitude and isolation, thinking about a relationship and how I was wanting to tell the girl that everything that was on my mind, but I was unable to articulate it, so I was getting crisscrossed in a wasted maze of art, per se. And, she was in another relationship, so obviously another relationship in general, you can't stop whatever happens there sexually and otherwise. So I just said, I looked up to God to say to myself, I give it to him to understand my faith. Last poem. This poem is called Mortality. I had a teacher from Texas who just gave this type of, it's like a poetry observation to her high school students because she loved this poem so much, and she made them observe it, and it was pretty awesome to see how the younger generation, observed my poetry. But this is called Mortality. Mortality is the monster under your bed. It's something real that we'd rather keep away instead. But as the clock ticks, your perspective is broader, like the oceans of the world, vast and deep. Every corner of your bed is tall and steep. And when you look over the edge, you're reminded of the monster that you can't defeat. So obviously during COVID, thinking about obviously mortality, but as you get older, for myself personally, I feel like I'm more susceptible to acceptance of, what God means for us inevitably. And the thing I love about this poetry book is that I interweave a lot of theological perspective. I'm Catholic, but I also universalize the poems in a sense where if you're not Catholic or you're not religious, you can still find meaning in them, which is really important to me. So that's it. I'd like to thank, again, David and Mellow Mug and Jessica for appreciate that, and my fellow poets here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. That reminded me of a teacher of mine that I had in high school who read the poem, is it called Thanatosis or Thanatopsis, being about death. And I remember I have this vivid image of her talking about the waves, the scene of the waves coming in. I can't remember who the poet was. And in her fingers as she talked about the waves coming into the ocean. Got burned into my memory, that teacher. All right, our next reader is Becky Clark.
Oh, she didn't come back.
She
No.
was,
Yeah.
oh, right, she was. Sorry. And Aaron, I have an Aaron Scott. Is that our next reader? All right.
Hello. I don't really talk yet, so I'm just gonna get into it. This one's called Fisherman of the Sky. It's from the perspective of a spider.
Put the mic closer to you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Is this good? Okay. Here we go. No one seems to like me. I'm not sure just why. Maybe it's my legs, or maybe it's my eyes. Whenever people see me, they shriek in surprise. They don't understand me, fisherman of the skies. I float through the air and cast my nets across the trees. This is how I survive. I beg you not to destroy them, please. These nets are my life. These nets are my home. These nets keep me company so I don't feel alone. They cut my nets, they burn the trees. They poison the water, always haunting me. I wish I could understand. Do they even know why? Nevertheless, I keep going. Fisherman of the skies. I don't know why, but I feel like I could cry. All right. This one's called Those Who Walk Amongst the Cars. We don't know what they want, nor who they are. We don't know what they'll do, or may have done thus far. Like shadows with no face, moving swiftly as if race, vanish silent with no trace. Like the chalkboard screech of a violin, or the dragging sound of rusted tin. If that darkened abyss wields a sharpened grin, then it's already over before it could begin. We don't know where they come from. We don't know what or why they are. But stay vigilant, stay wary, friend, of the ones that walk amongst the cars. And then I've got one more. It's called Rotting of the Mind. The older that I get, the more literate I feel, questioning myself and if this life is even real. Counting down the days, the ticking clock continues to steal. The older that I get, the weaker I've become. Disillusioned thoughts and my mind is going numb. History repeats itself. Humanity still cheats itself. Mind ravenous, it eats itself. It is said that knowledge is wealth. Books are falling off the shelf. It seems that they're just one's perspective. Still, in the end, what is life subjective? What's the point of giving a fuck? Because until the end, in my head, I'm stuck. I'm getting older, and that's okay. None of these thoughts will even matter one day.
Thank you for putting up with this mess of papers in front of you. Okay, our next reader is Dwayne. Dwayne Johansson.
Hi. Okay, a couple things before I get started with my reading here. First thing I want to let you know is that if you like doing this kind of stuff, I'm from Peru. We're going to be having a reading in Peru on the 17th, so next Friday, right? At Streeters Entertainment starting at 6 o'clock. It's sponsored by Peru Pride. I'm not affiliated with the organization. I'm just going to be there for the reading. I thought you should know too. And it is 16 and over. So we'd love to have you come and listen and read and do all of that kind of stuff. Okay? The other thing I want you to know about is, I want you to know about the style of poetry that I usually write. I write longer narrative poems, but most of the poetry I write is in a form called shijo. Okay? And I just happen to see that David brought the book here today. So if you want to learn about shijo, you want to read something about shijo, my friend Lucy and some other people put this together. So it's a wonderful book here. Shijo is a poetry form I've done a couple of workshops, well received but poorly attended workshops at the library. Okay. And happy to do some more for others if you'd like. But Shijo is a poetry style from Korea. It's pretty brief, so I have several poems here. But okay. About 45 syllables, 3 lines of around 15 syllables each. So it's a little longer and a little more flexible because we're not strictly into the haiku. It has to be this many syllables kind of thing. It's a wonderful form of poetry and I love it. Okay? So, that said, okay, I do want to let you know that about midway through my set, I'm going to switch from serious stuff to more silly stuff. Okay? There will be a prop involved that will tell you when that switch is happening. Okay? All right. Thank you. By the way, I do have like 10 of these to read. They're short, but if you get tired of them halfway through, just give me a thumbs down and I'll sit down. Okay? So, all right. The first one is based off of a Mexican folktale. It's called Llorona. Your world long ago turned sideways. Now you haunt the riverbanks, warning children to stay away, lest they slip in and drown. Collecting the scraps of clothing left in the brambles of the fleeing mothers. This one is called Susie Gets Flowers Again. The flowers arrived at the office before you did this time. Roses and lavender, your favorites. I love you so much, baby. Then you show up, wearing long sleeves, and lock the door so we cannot see. This is one I wrote for my father. It's called Bypass. Driving on the Hoosier Heartland on the way to see my son, I drive past the familiar sign pointing the way to Logansport. My heart flutters a bit. Not much need to turn there anymore. All right, no thumbs so far, good. Okay. This is called Changing the Linens. Clean sheet between us, standing on opposite sides of the bed, we shake it out, attempting to make persistent wrinkles smooth. But you walk away, leaving me trying to tuck the corners in tight. This one is based off of a favorite Edward Hopper poem of mine. Hopefully you've seen it. It's called Sun in an Empty Room. Curtains gone away from the window, the sun streams freely through now, shining past where the cat used to lie for her afternoon nap, to the wall that once held framed photos of happy times. This is a true story based on a cat I used to have. It's called Alice's Adventures. Sun shining brightly through the glass, Alice meows at the door, pleading. I undo the lock, and she steps through, stretching out in freedom and light, before boldly taking up her favorite spot on the other side of the same window. This is called bojagi, or the style. The bojagi is the cloth tying art in Korea. So, since I'm reading Korean poetry, I thought it would be appropriate for this. Okay. She took the picture now. So that's yeah. Okay. So, this is called Stress Workshop. Mandatory work seminar. Sincere lady talks mind and heart. Pay attention to your spirit's needs, she says, over and over. But I can't listen. My head hurts, thinking of undone grading at home. I'm a teacher, so there you go. This is called Cleaning Day. Wasn't prepared for that. Okay. In my 20s, there were 2 times when my apartment was clean. When my parents were coming over, or when I had a date. Today, working on writing, I notice the oven door is grimy. This one is called Progressive Delusion. Facebook's looking dark today, filled with prejudice and hate. There's so much bias and pain. It spurs me to take action. So, I care, reply. Go to bed. Know that I've done my part. And then finally, this one is at least tangentially about coffee, and I thought it was appropriate to end with this one. It's called Coffee Talk and Adulthood. I'm 8 years old at Grandma's house. Mom and my aunts are in the kitchen. I hear you, sis. That first cup hits. 2 minutes later, I'm pooping. Nods and chuckles all around. Ew, is this really what grown-ups talk about? Turns out it is. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. And yeah, we haven't organized anything yet, but we've had at least 2 since I've been there, workshops where he has a really great program for showing you how to write shijo poems. And I hopefully will be doing another one of those soon. I should add too that I do some writing for JCAP at the jail, and I have found that both haiku and shijo are wonderful entrances to poetry for people that haven't written poetry, and we have a lot of fun with it. So thank you for enlightening me into that. And in fact, I'm just sorry, excuse me while I kiss the sky. No, excuse me while I read my own shijo, which I wrote in one of his workshops. This I altered, so I'm afraid it might not technically be a shijo anymore, but it's all from that workshop. So.
You call it a shijo? If you call it a shijo, it's a shijo.
I'm going to call it a shijo, yeah. As long as I'm pronouncing it correctly, I will call it a shijo. And this was inspired by a trip to Korea, actually, which made it a little more appropriate. I find my footsteps along the purple forest path. Foxholes from 1948 smolder still. Militant foliage secretes the past. Bits of tephra turn tooth and bone. A roe deer barks, then beats a retreat over volcanic dust. Again, thank you. Click if you want, yell, hoot, boo. I will choose to interpret it as I will. All right, our next, I noticed we've had some readers coming in. And let's look at our list here, if I can remember where we're at. I made the mistake once. I guess I should advertise it here. We have a regular book club with the library, the Classic Book Club. And we've been meeting here. We also meet at the library. And I recently made the mistake of not stapling my papers for the reading. And before long, it looked just like this. Okay, for our next reader, we have Ren Hutchins, I believe, yes. Ren Hutchins.
I'm never organized.
Yeah.
I'm at that age where I have to do this. Some of my stuff's a little macabre, so bear with me. I'll try to omit any vanity, for sure. And yeah, I've been writing since I was 6. I'm 52. And yeah, so there's that. I like music, that too, so give it a go. This one's called Freddie Prinze, if anybody knows of him.
Chico and the Man.
Yeah. What is this life? That's fame and fabrications. Even with the gun to the head, they still take pictures. Because your death's worth more than a life. The morbidity lingers through the smiles and tears. Gather for a funeral, alone during the joys, and everyone wants to celebrate a tragedy, a calamity. Just as long as another song sells, dwells, swells, farewells. And they'll sell you into your headstone, laughter to hide the battles that pervade the impenetrable, a stoic stone barrier to protect the inevitable fall. Hallways in the alleyways hidden, forbidden. The celebrations of someone's success, a culture created, glorification of death. Fame, shame, it's all the same. Who cares? Because apathy is freedom. No, who cares? Swears, empty promises, it doesn't matter. With the clatter and the splatter, fodder for the sod dug deeper. Dust to mud and the dampened spirit, hear it, clear it for the next new story of the day. Freddie Prinze. A little macabre. This one's called Clean Up Aisle 3. Wipe up your messes and put out your fires. Light your way to misery and kick you to the perspires. Scream, scream, scream some more in muted milk that bubbles to the outside. Volcano burns the ashy ground. Sound, 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 and sound. The horns charge the gates and wipe the ashes, paid the pennies. Use you to the fingers bleed, nevermore, nevermore. Guess we're all just horror. Sick and tired of the grinding train, illusions, contusions of the soul to drain. Spin, spin, sin through kin. Blood to break and chains that bound, dragged to the waters, buried in the ground. Mourn with a smile, sold to the mercantile. Another charm, another slave, corporate inequity, sold for cents to the highest bidder. Benefit, bureaucracy, politics, and persecution molded into the Stepford wives that we all become. In the trudging lines of painted plastic, slave, engraved, the numbers on my skin, horror, sores, echoing my sins. Slave, slave, but you can break your chains. Just keep breaking, breaking, breaking. That one's called Clean Up Aisle 3. I do have happy ones. And I have some faith-based ones too, which is quite the dichotomy for what I read. Let me try to find one that's a little chipper. There's so many. Like I said, not very organized, sorry. There's one I really wanted to read, so give me a second. Yeah, this is, I've been doing this since I was 6.
Is this performance art?
Yeah, it's working out all my,
Performance art.
all my.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's just here. I'll have to be more better organized, but there's this one. So this one's called Swollen Eyes. 13 years I dedicated to you, 2 babies, chaos and home, loads of laundry to do. Just wasn't enough how much I loved you, and now in this tiny apartment, guitar singing the blues. They say where first you run is who you love, spending hours upon hours, and I just wasn't enough. The corner tavern was more than I could ever be, a liquid lover, and you didn't want me. Right after night and night after night, you walked away saying nothing, no buys, and I bled black tears out of these swollen eyes. You made love to your bottle inside as I bled black tears out of these swollen eyes. Phone rings, I always waited for you. Children questioned, does daddy love us more than that booze? Holding back the tears, I stood in empty doors, bathed the kids, scrub another floor. Doesn't matter, I still lose. And you didn't care, just have one more drink. Just all the whatevers behind your kitchen sink for you to beat. And all you needed me for was a beck and call bride. Beat me till my heart bled dry, bled out of all these swollen eyes. Thank you, because I won't waste any more of your time. That's all we better organize. A little macabre, I'll be happier stuff next time.
No, the more macabre, the better.
I'm offended.
I should also say that I think before you got here, I had broken a rule of my own, which was don't make rules, which was that to ask people to applaud after the whole set rather than individual. So that's why people were, they were obviously great.
Don't tell us we can't vote.
No. Okay, where am I? Barb.
Buttervine. I have a haiku. This is how I feel about Indiana winter. I've been told to embrace it, and I just have never been able to embrace it enough. Ever bleak, cloudy, rainy days, never ending. Daffodils bring joy.
For that. And Sheldon, we are ready for you, sir.
I'm out of order here. See, look, you're not the only. I'm out of order here. You're not the only one.
We all know how much poets love organizations.
We love it, but it's so fleeting. We can't chase it. I printed these at the library before I came here, and they were like, "Oh, they print double-sided. Is that okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." I just wanted to get here.
Oh, yeah.
That's broken. I'm not going to touch that. Alright. Yes, my name is Sheldon. I do have a pen name. I go by S. Franklin. Franklin's my middle name, but S. Franklin kind of rolls off a little more. I feel better than Sheldon Hubbard. Great name, but S. Franklin sounds a little cooler, so you can call me either. But what I'm about to read is 6 poems that I found at like 2 o'clock this morning because I fell asleep at like 5 last night and I slept all night, so I woke up at 1 and I just did a bunch of stuff. I read poems that I wrote, and I tried to throw a set for this together, then I found these, and I'm like, these are way better. I'm gonna try to see what I can do here. But it's kind of, they have really like, I guess a sci-fi feel for weird poetry, I guess, but a lot of what I had in mind while I was writing this stuff is like The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, the Fallout games, my TV show, and stuff like that. So I kind of wrote them in a way that more lyrical, they kind of read more like lyrics than actual, like just regular poems. We all know they can kind of be mutually exclusive, right? But I called it Red Sun Wasteland, and I even have like a little graphic with it and stuff. I should have brought my laptop. I could have set it up, but we're all a little underprepared, right? But this is kind of what I came up with. The titles of each piece also kind of say a phrase as well. We'll see if anybody can catch that. So 1 is when. When will it stop? Breaking bones, sizzling flesh, what a mess we humans have made. So many care, but so many don't. Enough to tie the end of our rope. Where is our hope? How can we cope with what our fellow man has done? When will it stop? Perhaps when the red sun dies and makes a wasteland of us all. When will it stop? 2, the red sun. Molten orb, we see you from the ground. You make no sound, yet you resonate in hues from white to red. Glowing orange, burning yellow, how you echo into eternity, shining down in pores of ultraviolet. Have you seen the red sun ever shine so bright? Wavelengths careening from one end of the sky to the other, day to night, free, or from set to rise. This red sun hurts our eyes sometimes. Glowing orange, burning yellow, how you echo into eternity, shining down in pores of ultraviolet. 3, sets, as in S-E-T, sets. The sun sets, the moon rises, I see your eyes in the stars. They don't tell lies and radiate light. You are the definition of peace of mind. Shorter are the days where we lay our heads to wake. For God's sake, we carry the weight of feet and hands. It's necessary that we withstand. Set and setting, breath of heaven, counting seconds, every moment of expression. Just the simple mention of your name helps keep my mind tame. I see your eyes, they tell no lies, and radiate light. The moon it sets, and the sun arises. I release to Creator all my devices. 4, we will dance. Feel the rhythm of the wasteland. Open dance floor, here we stand in the prism of our sentience. Awaken my bones to reverberate tones and quakes from below, how tasteful the sound of our shapes and faces. Pull me in, away from sin. This is no lust, but a love to live. We will dance deep into the night. Through war and circumstance, we explore this wild life, the strain and strife of a heavy existence. How the world stops when your hand touches mine, this feeling divine. Now watch as we dance deep into the night. 5, in the wasteland. Mountains decay, falling to the sea, while we bereave in the wasteland we have left. Prefer deft in your perception. Don't be so daft as to think that evil men don't wish to rob you of your righteousness by convincing you that their wrongdoings are what's actually right. Waters tainted by debates and corporatists who seem to sully the gullies and breed fire in the valleys. Devastating scenes of decaying greens, life demolished by the money in their wallets. When we exist in the wasteland, maybe then they will learn. And the last one, 6, of what's left. Across the globe, each detonation would roar, carrying smoke across the air, draping us in a thick toxicity. Our bright glowing sun melted into a sinister glow behind clouds that exist in an unbiased sky, witnessing catastrophe as it unfolds in droves. Back to subsistence, any survivors would go, challenging themselves to grow both food and soul. Seasons they shift, our oceans are sick, lips and knuckles split from colder weather and harder labor that presents no choice anymore. Across the globe, when the red sun sets, we will dance in the wasteland of what's left.
Thank you, S. Franklin. I've noticed a couple poems that have really beautiful repetition of words that reminded me of I saw a poetry reading a long time ago. I was lucky enough to see Allen Ginsberg read shortly before he died. And this was one of the things he would sometimes, and I wish I could remember exactly which poems, I think America perhaps was one, and where he would really get into the repetition of some of his words and really build up a momentum with them that was just a wonderful thing to behold. And at the end, he pulled out his harmonium and he sang William Blake poetry, which was originally made for music, apparently. And Blake had music written for it, but I'm not sure that exists. We'll have to research that. But don't ask the AI, because if it doesn't know, it won't tell you. All right. Tim, are you ready today? Tim Hartzler, ladies and gentlemen.
Bear with me a second, I've got some visual aids. As well as being a writer and an artist, and I do illustration to accompany my writing.
Hello, my name is Tim Hartzler. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and it's nice to see such a nice turnout, and it means a lot to me that everyone here seems to place importance on keeping art alive in our community. I started out being a filmmaker, I guess. I've done special makeup effects and some filmmaking, very low budget. Eventually moved on to music, singing and songwriting. I liked many different types of music, including dark folk music, even black metal, if anybody here knows what that is. I have moved on, though, in more recent times because I could not really find anybody to stay dedicated to the projects we were working on. I decided to do something that did not involve other people so that I could get some stuff done. So, screenplay writing for film became story writing, and songwriting became poetry. And so it was an easy enough transition. This piece I will be presenting to you is obviously horror, and I will say that it tells something of a story, although the story is relatively simple, not much happens in it. It is mostly just an exercise in mood and atmosphere. People ask me sometimes, how would you describe this piece? I would say, think Edgar Allan Poe meets Evil Dead, and you kind of get the idea of what Justine at the Window is like. Dusk brings peace to my dreary home while chasing away the light. The conclusion to an eventless day is hastened by the night. But now, a shadowy movement on the wall from some unknown source. Instinctively and curiously, I turn round to look, of course. There is someone outside, a person looking in my window, someone I just may recognize, casting a moonlit shadow. A gaunt, unwelcoming face, whose blank gaze confronts me with dread, for the visage is that of someone whom I know to be dead. Her name was Justine, and she used to be a part of my life. There was even a time that I entertained making her my wife. It all seems so very distant while I look upon her now, as Justine at the window chills me to my very soul somehow. Hers is a distressing sight to behold, disheveled and grave-torn, and by her appearance, she silently sings the song of the forlorn. Within the decay of her features, the patterns are not pleasant. Her hollowed, upright shell reveals a hideousness at present. I perceive her dry, cracked flesh clinging to her bones like a shriveled crust, and in the void of her bosom, her long, silent heart should remain as dust. Her hair, so faded and coarse, like wind-weathered weeds in fall-time fields, tangled within those brittle locks, autumn leaves are not fully concealed. And now transfixed, those post-mortem eyes, too dry to shed a tear, pale, pupilless eyes, overwhelmed with white and stained by stark fear, from whose craving, breathless mouth may come an unholy kiss of blight. So Justine at the window cripples my nerves with foreboding fright. She stands expressionless, seemingly looking in my direction, and I think back to when I lost her, a torturous reflection. She passed in the early spring, nearly 7 long months ago, from some strange malignant condition, some pale disease of woe. Her mind slipped away, the damage in her manner unhidden. Her dismay grew further, then anguish rendered her bedridden. She was plagued with unsound thoughts and such nightmares that made her ill. She died in the throes of a fractured heart and remains dead still. Yet there she stands looking in, as if she willed herself awake. Her corpse rejoins the living, and so her tomb does she forsake. I don't know why she traversed here, nor how she defied death's hold, but Justine at the window still haunts my veins with newfound cold. Through one of the 7 doors of the dark, she then must have arrived. From such a damning journey, it is not likely her soul survived. I'm relieved for the peace of mind that her entry to my home is blocked. Thankful to be a creature of habit who keeps all his doors locked. Should she wish to come inside and warm herself beside my fire and pretend to be the person she was before she expired, she might be deathly contagious in such a morbid state as this, and I fear she seeks to sicken me by her cold embrace and kiss. I truly hope she has no designs on remaining here to stay, for it has become my desire that she respectfully walk away. If only she could return to the earth for my own pitiful sake. Yet Justine at the window affects my bones to such trembling quakes. I resolve to ignore her presence, sensing she feeds on my attention, averting my eyes from the window that I may ease this great tension. She may have sought my watchful eye from the moment this whole thing started. And now as I look back again, I see she has indeed departed. Though I'm thankful she's left this place and removed herself from my sight, it troubles me to think of her out there roaming in the night. A broken doll who denies her own demise, or so it seems, and cold kisses from her dead lips shall likely burden all my dreams. Some foul specter is she, a soulless body with a lifeless face, and on this darkening, chilled autumn's eve, she moves but without grace. Now with Justine wandering around, we must all remain aware. So then take heed, look to your own window, make sure she's not there. Thank you.
You ran a lot of this past me, and I can tell you that he's a very meticulous writer, and it shows, obviously. All right. Andrea Rowe, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I get to follow Tim. That's exciting. I'm the director of the library, so thank you guys for all coming out. Like, this is an awesome turnout. My poem is, I wrote it for, I have these 3 lifelong guy friends. We've known each other since 2nd and 3rd grade. We all turned 40 a couple years ago, and one of my friends, his sister and his now wife, wanted to write a newsletter for him, so we all, kind of submitted something. So I wrote a poem about our elementary school days, and I will explain one thing that sounds kind of weird in it. We had a thing called Media Fair. I don't know if, in Culver we did Media Fair. We did slideshows, we did transparencies where we recorded stories and had transparencies that went with the stories. And one of my friends, he had a stutter and he couldn't say Sphinx of Giza. He said Sphinx of Giza. And that's something that, always just stood out to me. And it might sound kind of weird in here, so I thought I would preface my poem with that. So this is called Back in the Day. Gifted and talented was our title. We were the smart kids, the brainiacs. We knew what a Google was years before Google was a thing. They threw us in hallways and storage rooms, wherever there was a spare space. Broken erasers, pencils rolled down into the basement. We read trade books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, A Wrinkle in Time, Tuck Everlasting. Over the years, stories that have stayed with me. Fairs full of media, raptor slideshows, red-tailed hawks, and owls of all sorts. Overhead projectors, Egyptian transparencies, the Sphinx of Giza. Who knows why they let pre-tweens be both the teacher and the student, but between you and me, I'm so happy that they did. Hallway days when life was simple and we tried to be quiet, but our laughter could be heard around the corner.
I'm short, David, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. That's one of the wonderful things about poetry. Isn't it incredible that, we could have a haiku that is 15, is it, syllables long, and a epic, romantic poem that is
I was talking about
15 minutes long.
I was talking about the mic.
Oh!
She's short, literally short.
Well, this is a. I tried to, because the threads are not working. I tried to set this at a generalized height. I tried to think, okay, what would be the average height that I could set this, and then we might all be able to be heard. And that's my excuse. All right. It reminds me of a quick story, though. Speaking of short and long, but anyway. Well, I was thinking of short and long, but yeah, short, tall. Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan were in a bar. No, that's it. Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan were talking, and I know many of you probably heard the song Hallelujah. It's been in Shrek, the Shrek movie. It's one of the most covered songs. Very beautiful, wonderful song. And Dylan asked Leonard Cohen, he said, how long did it take you to write Hallelujah? And the truth was that Cohen had taken about 10 years to write Hallelujah, but he lied and said, 2 or 3 years. How long did it take you to write Just Like a Woman? And Dylan said, about 20 minutes. Yeah. But isn't it amazing that we can write on the tongue, as one of the things that Allen Ginsberg talked about, a poem that just comes to you like lightning, can have every bit as much weight as something that someone might labor over for a very long time, but it does not make one better or worse or qualitatively different necessarily. Okay, Becky, do we have Becky here? Right. Thank you for waiting.
So this is called The Angry Daughter. So the angry daughter isn't angry, she's tired. She's been reading the room and studying people's faces since she was a little girl, trying to understand what version of herself the moment required, trying to stay small enough to keep the peace, trying to stay strong enough to survive the storm. She learned early on how to measure the air in a room, how to notice the silence before it turned sharp, how to move around tension like furniture in a living room. She learned that survival sometimes meant being quiet, sometimes it meant being loud, but it always meant paying attention. She had to grow up faster than she should have had to. She had to put down the Barbies to pick up adult problems, to carry the worries that were never meant for small hands, to listen to conversations she was too young to understand but old enough to feel. While other children were learning how to play, she was learning how to endure. She learned how to protect others even when no one protected her. How to comfort people whose wounds were visible while quietly carrying her own. She learned how to keep going even when the people who should have held her up were the same ones who watched her fall. She's been abandoned more times than she can count, left to figure things out on her own while others stood back, quietly watching to see if she would fail. She was criticized for being too sensitive, mocked for speaking up, punished for reacting to pain that no one else wanted to acknowledge. So eventually the world labeled her difficult, too much, and angry. But the angry daughter was never angry. She was exhausted. Exhausted from carrying responsibilities that weren't hers, holding together spaces that were already falling apart, from trying to earn love that should have been given freely. What people saw as anger was often her grief. What people called attitude was often her survival. And what people dismissed as rebellion was sometimes the first moment she got to choose herself. The angry daughter grows up eventually. She stops begging people to understand her, stops shrinking herself to make others comfortable, stops carrying the emotional weight of rooms that she didn't create. Not because she stopped caring, but because she finally learns that caring should not cost her her peace. She is careful now about who gets access to her heart, careful about where she places her energy. careful about the spaces she allows herself to stay in. She knows now that love should not feel like walking through a battlefield. That peace should be something that peace should not be something she has to beg for. She chooses differently. She chooses quiet over chaos, truth over pretending, healing over survival, and most importantly, she chooses herself. The angry daughter was never angry. She was simply a girl who deserved safety, love, and softness. And now that she understands that, she refuses to settle for anything else.
Okay, Wayne Pope, is he believe? He is our next reader, our next multimedia contributor.
Everyone see this? Hopefully. My name is Wayne Pope and I live in Tippecanoe, Indiana. And I love taking pictures, especially of nature. And this is a little slideshow along with the narration of some photos that I've taken recently. The dead of winter. We've had a tough one this year. And in the wintertime, it's really hard to get motivated to go outside and take pictures. The cold is kind of daunting. And when you look at the landscape, where is the beauty? You search for it. You drive around, you look for it. But mostly you see dark tones, dark trees that are bearless of leaves, yellow grass that used to be green. But then spring comes and the roads start to melt and become safe again for travel. And what a welcome sight, huh? The American robin. And they come back and search through the snow for worms and slugs. But they lift your heart when you see them because it's a sign of spring. It's amazing how American robins can find something to eat in the frozen ground. This one was a frequent visitor to the First United Christian Church in Bourbon, Indiana. And for 3 years in a row, this female robin would make her nest in the stained glass window and raise her young there. And it was comforting when I visited the church just to have a little moment of quiet time with the Lord, to think that she was outside raising her young. And then comes warm summer days. And that's when I put my telephoto lens and my wide-angle lens in my vehicle, and I love to drive down the country roads here of northern Indiana, searching for photo opportunities. Did you know that Indiana has the greatest number of free car washes in the entire nation? And not only do you get your windshield washed, you get the side mirror washed too. But during the summertime, during the drought, it's important for corn farmers and soybean farmers, but mostly corn, to irrigate their crops with water so that they can sell their grain at a good price. Another harbinger of spring for me is my neighbor's barn on 331, right by the Tippecanoe River, to see his redbud tree start to bloom. and turn that beautiful pinkish red. And I noticed when I drove by our Fulton County Library this afternoon on my way here, that we have a redbud tree in our arboretum, and it's starting to turn this color here too. And it's a joy to behold. I also love to drive by old barns, old abandoned homesteads, and try to think, what was this like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when it was in its prime and that farmer was still alive? Some of these barns, still standing, serve as little hotels for wayward cats and a roosting place for barn owls. We see a lot of barns like this now that are just left to decay, and old abandoned farmsteads too. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to walk into one of those if you had permission and search around for treasures, maybe in an old drawer or in an attic somewhere? Would you find a coffee can full of money, jewelry? This was an old home on Gumwood on the old Lincoln Highway between Bourbon and Plymouth. It was torn down now recently, but every time I took my nieces and my nephews by there, I tell them a little story about the Gumwood Troll. The Gumwood Troll lived in there, and he would always come out and he would pick on the youngest child in my car and always go for their big toe. Is that true, Uncle Wayne? And one of them went to Google to see if there was such a thing as trolls. Right next to this abandoned troll house was a male pouch tobacco barn. And if you look closely, and I'll zoom in on this, can I do that? Right here in the top, where I'm pointing my finger, is an icon of a northern cardinal, which is our state bird. And I never saw that until I looked really closely at these chew male pouch tobacco ads. Many of them had a northern cardinal there as part of its advertising. And I think that's great. It's too bad they didn't paint it red. This is an abandoned silo in Inwood, Indiana. Now, Inwood, Indiana lies between Bourbon and Plymouth, and it is the sister of Atwood, Indiana, which lies between Warsaw and Etna Green. It's really interesting how Indiana towns got their names, and it's fun to Google them. Did you know that there's a town in Indiana called Gnawbone? Gnawbone. Gnawbone, Indiana. There's also a town called Hoosier, Indiana. And French Lick. Here's a photo of the Summit Chapel. It's on Highway 10, which used to be an old schoolhouse. And in it are pictures of our greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and right up front is a dunce cap. You see that tall, pointed white hat there that says dunce on it? Bad boys, misbehaving children had to put that hat on and sit in the back of the class. 20 years later, they became the mayor of Bourbon. They became preachers, lawyers. So here's an old gas station. And Texaco. And it's still oh, here's a garden. I'm going to keep going. This is DeFreeze Garden near New Paris, Indiana. And I love to go there because it is a calendar garden with bricks that represent every day of the year in a circle. And the person who designed this garden chose plants that would bloom or be in a hardy appearance right in front of that brick on the day of the year. And here is July the 30th, and what do we have behind here? We have some orange lilies, and it looks like some pink flowers too. So that is a great calendar garden to visit in New Paris, Indiana. It's part of the Elkhart County Park System. And here's a picture that Donna took of me, my wife, from the second story balcony there. I also enjoy visiting cemeteries. And I have some relatives that are buried here in northern Indiana. It's a great way to get in touch with people who are your ancestors, who lived before you, who are related to you, have a family story. Here's a cemetery that is near Rowan, and it has the most beautiful maple tree that I've ever seen. It looks like it was manicured by one of those Japanese bonsai experts. A couple of log cabin photos from the Potawatomi Nature Park in winter and then in the summertime. These are what original Hoosier settlers lived in 100 years ago, back in the day, before the day of television and the internet. And here's a sign that you often see on an Indiana country road. Watch for the John Deere and the leaping whitetail deer. And as you drive along the road, sometimes you'll see an Amish buggy go by. And I enjoy watching them and hearing the clip-clop of the horse and the squeaky wheels, and admiring people who have a lifestyle that is so different from ours, but so close to nature. Here's a photo of a woman driving a horse team, plowing, wearing a pink dress, and then her husband is coming back toward her with another team of horses plowing the ground. And here are some horses that are waiting for their chance to get out there in the farmland. And finally, the sun sets on a silo here in northern Indiana. The end. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Wayne. Wayne also sometimes does workshops at the library, so I encourage you all to look out for those. That concludes our first round. We do have a little bit of time, and if anybody wants to read one or two other poems, you can feel free to come and do that. Otherwise, I would very much like to thank you all for coming out and reading and contributing, and I hope we can do this another time soon. And very importantly, as some of you might know, the library puts out a poetry compilation every year, and I encourage you to contribute, as this is April Poetry Month. It's usually when we begin collecting, we begin our collection. So feel free anytime to stop by my office, the literacy office at the library, or drop anything off with anybody. It'll get to me, and we'd love to see you in our next compilation. Oh,
anybody wants some.
Thank you. Yeah, by the way, at Tim's instigation, also, we did manage to get 10 more of these, which are free for your taking. 10 copies of the most recent poetry compilation, which features some artwork by Erica, some poetry, some of the poems that you heard today, actually. And have at 'em. First come, first serve. All right. If anyone wants to read, please feel free. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Yeah.
That's suiting for the environment. This one's called Cafe Du Monde, if anyone's been to New Orleans before. I went to music school there. Right out of high school, I moved 1,000 miles away and got as far away from here as possible to the very core of everything we know in America is music, because it all started in what they call Armstrong Park, at the drum circle, jazz circle they have there. And it's really an intense city, and it took everything that I did growing up with writing, music, playing classical piano since I was 4, and that city just ran with it through my soul. And New Orleans has never left my heart. I miss it very much. I haven't been back since Katrina hit, because I actually lost some dear friends in that storm. And some friends of mine lost everything they ever owned in that storm as well. But going back next year, some prodding from friends in the metal scene and stuff like that. But this is something I wrote about there. Green in my eyes, peppermint skies, rosemary oil, black coffee don't spoil. Lips to the line, the darkness so fine, cream or so maybe too sweet. Take it blonde or black meat. Caffeine, nicotine, all stains the shimmering sheen. Grinding the bean, a rhyme beats obscene. Froth to the rim, filled to the brim. At Cafe Du Monde, I roasted a blonde.
Oh, I'll read a quick one here. This is another Korea-inspired one. I was only there for a month, and I only managed to stay on the island of Jeju, but it was an inspiring place, and yeah, truly, for all sorts of reasons. I guess maybe a couple of terms. There'll be many, but the Haenyeo, and I'm probably not pronouncing this correctly, but they are the divers. They are women, many of them into their 80s, who are still going out into the ocean and diving down for the abundance of the sea. I've seen them carry up bags of abalone and octopus and everything that they can get. And then many of the restaurants around have that stuff fresh right out of the ocean. Fresh and, as Gollum would say, reinkling. Yes. So, this is called Chagweedo Ferry. I'm probably mispronouncing that. What do you think? Chagweedo? What's up? Chagweedo Ferry. One day while you worked, I walked down to where the road disappears into the ocean to see the dragon of Chagweedo Island. A sign said no turning back, but that was a bad translation, and all I found among the fishermen was the past, playing down to a smooth cast. A Haenyeo with her mussels, clams, and octopus pulled from crevices 30 meters below, smiled a crinkled smile in her shining wetsuit, and walked on to the restaurant, where the nacreous blue open jaggi is boiled alive in a clay pot. Push that wriggling abalone back into the boiling lava sauce, which now serves my purpose as a hell where harmful memories are consumed with generous helpings of salt. It's no use, he said, looking back. And now I'm left with only questions. How to contain the doomsday fish, 30 feet long and washed up on the shore? Should I not long for temple water in the jail-mold forest, or the purple bubbles in the carbonic springs of Mount Songbong? Why look back at the cliffs of Sewaldong, a spice cake of baked basalt, the bent bombs sag, a typhoon of fire now frozen and slowly diminished by footfalls in the singing wind? Why look back over my shoulder down to the sea, to the end of a continent, to the shearing cliff where a girl reaching for the last bunch of medicinal herbs for her dying grandmother fell? It's no use telling those sad old tales, he said. Better the aromatherapy of the present, the meditation of now, the opiate of narrative therapy. Recast the past. Ligia exotica in place of wharf roach. Mododonta perplexa in place of sea snail. And I am a traveler and a poet, not a tourist and a liar. Anyone else wish to read? If not, we will.
Hi again. No. I'd like to read one of my longer narrative poems for you, if that's okay. Yeah, you can feel free to leave now if you'd like. So, okay. I will say that's important. I've never had the opportunity to read this to people like you. I usually use it in my classes, which means that my audience is 15-year-olds who are filled with apathy and ennui. So, okay. And I use this when I teach the mythological story of Balder from Norse mythology. Do I need to talk about who Balder is? Okay, so Balder was the god that represented good and light and all those other kinds of things, that was killed by his brother through the deception and the trickery of Loki. Okay, his mother tries to make him impervious to any harm, but she misses out on mistletoe, and that is the thing that ends up killing him. To test then whether or not he can be killed by anything, the gods throw things at him and shoot things at him and try to say, and nothing hurts him. And so this is a poem for all of those who feel like we have to be the one standing, watching people, standing strong while people throw things at us, and wondering what it would feel like for him. It's called The Lamentations of Balder. Okay. It's the ones who stand close who hurt me the most. Those who let fly from far away, I cannot see the fury in their eyes, hear the strain in their breath, watch their clothes twist around the muscles as they move in for the attack. Those who let fly from far away, once their hands toss their spear, once their fingers release the bowstring, once they loosen their grip and hurl the stone, it's just their weapon that hits me and falls impotently to the ground. But those who stand close, those who acknowledge me, those who seemingly validate me, before swinging their swords at my neck, before thrusting their knives toward my torso, before forcing their hammers down on my skull, those who stand close, I can recognize as brothers, as friends. I can remember happier times together when we didn't have the weight of our fate wrapped around us in frustration and confusion, pushing us into this ridiculous test. I can see in their eyes the trepidation caused by mother's dreams. I can feel their looming doubts, their disbelief that I can't be killed, that we have finally triumphed over the wicked Norn of the future, that we have become unbound from the must be that there is still reason to hope. And I, too, want to believe that the prophecies have been wrong. For this has been my promise, my role, my reward. I have been the light in darkness, the one who gives confidence when the crops wither in the field, the one who gives assurance when the cradle becomes a coffin, the one who brings faith in the darkness of despair. I have been trust. I have been light. But now, because of this terrible test, this necessary test, I have become the target of your frustration, a safe place to release your hurting, to unload your fury, to relieve yourself of disappointment. Balder can't be harmed, they say. Come, try. Watch your weapon strike, but draw no blood. Come and try and watch his skin remain unblemished. Come and try and watch us hurl everything we have against him and him not be hurt. And yes, although I feel each assault, my body can't be harmed. My body is still unscathed. My body remains intact and undisturbed. But here I stand, alone, in the middle, while you test the limits of mother's covenants, alone. For Nana, she cannot bear to watch the anger you bring to this contest. Alone, swelling the sweat of your exertion, seeing that ember of rage in your eye, watching you draw your arms back to once again determine if I might, if I can, if I will, die. And sometimes, when I see another knife unsheathed, I hope that this attempt will be final and fatal. It's the ones who stand close who hurt me the most.
Thank you for that, Dwayne. And I'm really glad that you brought up the Greek mythology that one of us did, because I've been resisting talking about the need of poetry the whole time. Oh, I'm sorry. Norse. Yes, absolutely. I remember doing the introduction and having a similar issue between Norse and Viking, but wondering if it was...
Where does Nordic fit in all?
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
All right, unless anyone else would like to read, I think we will call it a day. There you go, yes, by all means.
All right. This one's called Firefly. Is it right or is it wrong? Who is one to the sun? Float away with the ashes as the buildings burn. The flames seductively dance as my skin heats, like the warmth of a lover in between the sheets. I've done many times before what I'm about to do again. If I wanted to stop myself, I wouldn't know where to begin. I just want to see you. I just want to be you. Burn the house and the yard, burn the trees too. They say it's a sickness. I don't want to be well. Medicating with inferno, so I turn the streets to hell. Consumed by the smoke and orgasmic state. One more time, seal my fate, drop the match, incinerate. Is it the devil or is God to blame? One and the same, without shame, like this world flame.
Yes, right here.
I'm going to do Ashes of Earth.
Okay. Now that. Oh, wait, no. It isn't.
Okay, this is a poem from, the poem I read previously was from this past year's poetry book. This is from the year before. It is called Ashes of Earth. It even has a small tag added to that title, in parentheses, the final seasons. So the full title being Ashes of Earth, the final seasons. It is a poem that takes you through the seasons of a dying Earth's final year. So the notion being the world coming to an end through nature. It ails with the seasons and will not mend. A depleted world approaching its end. The ending unfolds with imminent dread. Malevolent storms that come to a head. Humanity dismayed for what they face. An extinction to their piteous race. Here the final days for this ancient turf, about to expire in ashes of earth. And dread is acquired through ashes of earth. Firstly, the vernal occurrence draws near. By the month of March, this concluding year. And the failing health of this blighted land, so barren humanity couldn't withstand. Spring is present, but new seeds hardly thrive. Deeply planted, yet somehow less alive. Their tainted growth declares famine and dearth. This fertile season brings ashes of earth. Dread finds its reason in ashes of earth. Then sweltering heat like never before, when oceans recede away from their shores. In zenith, the star harshly caresses, scorching waves and unbridled excesses. From fire tempests and flames that they render, much of humanity burns to cinders. Relentless, the sun announces its worth. Summer and solstice to ashes of earth. Suffer dreads justice through ashes of earth. The heat subsides as green withers to brown. October's gloom closes in all around. Wanting for yields from years past they once had, humans garner despair from soil gone bad. After the harvest, a coldness at hand, this deathly season, the death of the land. Fading with fall, it will see no rebirth. Echoes of autumn and ashes of earth. Dreads all that blossomed from ashes of earth. With an icy surge, December frost climbs, a freezing of hearts in bleakest of times. In the last season of Earth's final year, the last humans die from their frigid fears. Ice-scapes sculpted of flurries and cold gusts, crystallized and brittle, a death-like crust. The stinging cold revels in restless mirth. Dead winter's longing for ashes of earth. Dread found belonging with ashes of earth.
And on that cheery note, well, anyone else, or shall I? Hold together. I got you. Yes, by all means, Dylan. Thank you. I'm sorry. No, you're fine.
Again, I'd just like to give a round of applause to like all the poets here. It's a hard job being a poet. You know, it's easy in the interim when you're writing it, but going out to actually speaking in front of people, that's a lot. So you guys taught me a lot too. I have a book event talk at Fulton County Library, April 25th from 12 to 2. I'll be signing books there too. Again, if anyone would like to get a book or get it on Amazon, it would be awesome. It went #1, so this is new for me. Just trying to inundate myself into the authorship community. This is a poem I wrote called "You Can't Say I Love You Enough." You can't say I love you enough. because words float through the air like pollen to destiny, written perpetually so that when souls meet the Creator, their flowers have grown to show impact. Meaning, what have you given the world to show it wasn't just about yourself you were seeking? Thank you.
Well, anyone? One of these days we'll get Braxton up here to read his poetry. I know he's got some hiding. Oh, there we go. All right.
It's a short one. It's not. I just found it kind of funny. It's called Inklings. I spelled it with a Y, so INKLYNGS. I envision them as like little ink droplet monsters that run around my brain and want me to write relentlessly. So Inklings. Dreams of inklings, these little beings, personified things. They are the words that float about my brain and flow betwixt neurons. They crave sentences and live to form stories, big, small, long, or tall. Some are candied with sweetness, others rowdy and mischievous. But none of them are malicious or of ill rapport. They simply want me to write more and more.
I think I'm going to call it on that because that's a good place. So everyone, write more and more. And thank you so much again for coming out. And write for the next one. We'll do this again sometime. So cheers.